Okay. Welcome to Sun to Shade, Changing Light Patterns in Your Garden. This is presented by Kay Green. I have been a master gardener in Buncombe County, North Carolina for the last 3 years, but I've been gardening for a very long time. Today I'm going to share with you a tool that I discovered about a year ago, and it is one of the best things that I've ever done to learn about my garden. We're going to start off with learning about hardiness zones, sun requirements, sun mapping, and right plants, right places. All plants need the same basic things. They need water, air, sunlight, and nutrients to grow. If your plants are getting too much sun, they could look like they are parched and visibly burnt. Their leaves can become brittle and break easily. Now, the tricky thing is that this could also be symptoms similar to underwatering. But what happens here is if it's due to too much sun, giving them more water will not help them recover. If you have plants that are getting too much sun, of course, the easiest thing would be to, if it's in a container, move the plant. If it's in your yard, you could consider putting up a covering to shade the plant, or you could consider planting a fast-growing tree or shrubs. And lastly, if none of those will work, then you just have to dig the plant up and move it. If plants aren't getting enough sun, you'll see that they have lost their vibrant color and have turned yellow or mottled. The leaves could be falling off the plant and growth could be stunted. Plants might look spindly with a lot of space between the leaves. Or, as you can see in this last photo down here, they could be leaning toward the light. So what do we do if they're not getting enough sun? If it's in a container, move it. If it's in your garden, you might want to consider cutting down trees or shrubs. And lastly, of course, you can always dig the plant up and put it in a better location. So, in selecting the right place, we have to start out thinking big. We need to know our growing zone, and then we need to observe the amount of sun as it travels throughout the day in our yard. Plants are usually categorized into 3 major categories: shade, partial shade, and full sun. In North Carolina, we live in growing zone 7. Now, the reason why I mention this is that in North Carolina, we could very easily travel down to Florida and fall in love with some beautiful tropical plants down there and bring them back, only to discover that they don't like our harsher winters. Or vice versa, we could travel up north and fall in love with some plant that can't tolerate our very hot summers. So buying plants in your growing zone is the first step to success. So let's look at sun requirements. When you go to the plant store, you'll find that plants are labeled by how much sun or shade that they require. And in many stores, they are kept where they are meeting their sun needs. So your full sun plants are going to be out in full sun, and your shade plants are going to be under shade. Partial shade plants means that they're getting not quite full sun, but not full shade either. So full sun means at least 6 to 8 hours of sun per day. Partial sun or partial shade means 3 to 6 hours of sun per day. And dappled shade is similar to partial shade, but the sun is making its way through the branches of a tree. Shade means that the plant needs less than 3 hours of direct sunlight each day, with filtered sunlight during the rest of the day. I'm going to show you 2 ways to figure out how much sun your yard is getting. The first one we're going to look at is called sun mapping, and the second is sun charting. I want to show you my garden so you can see how I use these 2 systems. This is facing my backyard, and here you can see my patio. And now you can see that I took a piece of grass paper and I did a rough sketch of the various parts that I'm interested in. This is not growing to scale, but what was important for me is that I had all parts of my yard in that I'm curious about. So in this slide, we can see that I am showing pictures of the slope, and the slope is represented right down here. In this side, you can see my patio, and the main feature here is this 2 boxes, and they are right over here. This area is in the corner of my patio, and this is my potato herb garden, and that's represented down here. And this are my flowers, and they are represented by this grouping of pots here. My hydrangeas are back in this corner, which is down here. And then this is another shot of my raised beds, and they are right over here. All right, so what I did is I started out at 8 in the morning and I drew my first line where my sun and shade line was. Then at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and so on. And when I got done, I discovered that I kind of had a big mess and it wasn't giving me a very clear picture of what the shade or the sun pattern was. So I thought, okay, what can we do to make this easier to understand? So I changed all this information over to a sun mapping chart. Across the top here, I put the hours that I recorded the time. So it goes from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And down here, I put the various areas that I'm interested in. So I have my hydrangeas, my raised beds, flowers, herbs and potatoes. And then for my slope area, I divided it into top slope and lower slope because I thought that they might be getting different amounts of sunshine. Now, if we go over to this column, you can see the total of the amount of sunshine I'm getting in each area. So we start off up here with 3.5 hours of sun for my hydrangeas, which is good because they are shade-loving plants. And if you look down here, all of these other areas are technically getting enough sun, which is 6 to 8 hours of sun a day, to be considered full sun. But what I discovered is that in my slopey area here, the first year I planted some vegetables, namely spinach, and they did not do well because they did not get enough sun. And let's look at why. So over here, my slope is getting sun in the early morning hours from 8 to 9. And then it's not getting any sun until around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So this area, even though it's getting a lot of sun, it's getting early morning light and late afternoon light, which meant that when I replanted my lower slope here with shade plants, they were still loving it because the only sun they were getting was the early morning and late afternoon sun. And let's go back up here to my hydrangeas. Now we know that they are shade-loving plants, and look what's happening with them. They are getting their sun during peak hours between 1 and 4. So what I do is on the hottest days of summer in July and August, when we haven't had any rain, I make sure that I go out and I give them some water first thing in the morning so they can make it through the afternoon. So that's it. This is a pretty easy, clear system to figuring out how much sun or shade you have in your yard. And once you're armed with this information, then you can head to the plant stores. So let's review. Full sun plants need 6 to 8 hours of direct sun a day. Partial shade or partial sun plants need 3 to 6 hours a day. And when it says partial shade, that means that it prefers the shade. And if it's going to get sun, it would prefer to get the sun early in the morning. If it says partial sun, it can tolerate sun more than the partial shade labeled plants. And your full shade plants, they only need 3 hours of sun a day for them to be healthy and strong. So that's it. By doing this, you can predict how much sun you have in your garden. And if you need any help with your gardening, you can call our garden helpline at 828-250-4878. The garden helpline hours are Mondays and Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and on Fridays from 10 a.m. to noon. Thank you.